Welcome to Chapter 8 of the Washington State Bee Association Beginner's Beekeeper Certification, where we will be looking at honey. We will cover two sections in this chapter: how much honey to leave for the colony and harvesting honey. If this is your first year doing bees and you start out with a package or nuke, there is a good chance that you will not harvest honey this year because the bees will spend a large amount of time and energy drawing out new combs on the foundation. But if it's not too dry and the plants receive a good amount of water and produce more nectar, it may be possible to harvest honey the first year. However, please keep in mind that you must plan on keeping enough honey on your hive to overwinter the bees. And remember, the number of frames of honey that you will leave for the bees will be based on the size of the brood box that you use. If you use a 10 frame deep Langstroth, you will need to use two deep hive bodies, one with brood and the other with honey. But if you're using 10 frame medium Langstroth, you will need at least three boxes, one with brood mixed with honey, and the third with honey. When using a war ray, you will need 2 to 3 hive bodies. If you use a top bar hive, you will need 16 to 20 frames and 20 frames for a long Langstroth. Keep in mind, if honey is taken from either of these two hives, the beekeeper must accept a level of risk until they gain enough knowledge of how much honey can be taken from this hive or should be left to overwinter the bees. It is better for a new beekeeper to err on the side of caution and have too much honey rather than not enough. When getting the hive ready for winter, try and keep just as much honey as you have bees. A winter hive should weigh about 120 pounds, including the hive equipment. Factors to consider are winter temperatures and length of the winter. These two go hand in hand when determining how much stores the bees will need to make it through the winter. Another factor to consider is the type of bees that you keep. For instance, Italians normally go into the winter with more bees, quickly consuming their resources, while Canolians go into the winter with a smaller number of bees, which helps them reserve their resources. Inspecting the hives. So let's recap. The first step before deciding how much honey to harvest is to determine the strength of the colony. In the upper left photo, there are 4 hives that are not the same strength. This is obvious by the number of supers on each hive. You also want to ensure that there are 2 full hive bodies for the Langstroth hive containing bees and stores, and at least 18 to 20 frames for the top bar hives and 20 frames for the Langstroth. Anything else, you should use your best judgment before harvesting. The bottom photo shows a super frame from a Langstroth hive completely filled with capped honey. When selecting a frame of honey to harvest, there are a few things to consider. First, be sure that there is no brood on the frame. And secondly, ensure that the frame that you choose consists of at least 3/4 capped honey. There are a few things to do with honey as a beekeeper. You can bank your honey, which is a wise way of saying Put your honey frames in the freezer, storing them to feed your bees next spring instead of using sugar water. Or you can take the honey for your own consumption. You can extract it into liquid or use it as comb or chunked honey. There are commercial beekeepers who provide extraction services. If you are fortunate, there may be one in your area that doesn't have a waiting list. However, if you extract yourself, you want to do so when the outside temperature is in the 80s or in a room that this temperature can be maintained so that the honey flows easier. When removing the frame from the hive, keep them covered to prevent the bees from discovering the honey and becoming a nuisance. For this reason, you also want to extract in a clean, enclosed area. In the photo on the left is a hand-powered extractor, which is good for those with a few frames, while the picture in the middle is an electric extractor, which can be used to process honey quickly and easily for those with more than a few frames. And in the picture on the far right is honey flowing through a strainer into a collector bucket. The photo on the left shows honey being poured into a jar from the collection bucket after being strained, while the photo on the right shows honey poured directly from an extractor into a container without being strained. Note the different colors of the honey taken from the same hives on the same property 1 year apart.